Hey boys, we're back in action. Chelsea against Wolverhampton Wanderers in the Carabao Cup tomorrow. Now, I didn't do a video covering, the match reaction and the whole calamity and breakdown from the Sunderland game. I was away from home. I was in London with the missus, so I wasn't able to cover it. And I only got home Monday, and I didn't think it was worth going over it considering we had a game on Wednesday. So that's the only reason I didn't cover it. Like, it was a complete joke. I was in London, but from the game, it was disgraceful, disgusting defending on the second goal. Sunderland deserved to win the game. We created nothing all game. I think Maresca got the subs wrong. I just think it was a really poor performance. Another inconsistent game from Chelsea. But we got a chance now to rectify that, move straight on, and hopefully pick up a win. I mean, if we can't beat Wolverhampton Wanderers in the Carabao Cup, just bin the club. There's no reason for us to continue going on with the season because like they're dead last. They got 2 points all season, a mighty 2 points, and they only just picked up those draws. Against Spurs, ironically. How they managed to get that, I'll never know. But I also think in this game as well, they're probably going to rotate quite a lot. I can't imagine they're going to put out their strongest 11 for the Carabao Cup. If they pick up an injury to one of their main players, that's almost their season completely written off, right? They're going straight down. So I imagine they're going to rotate quite a bit. So are we, but obviously we got a much stronger squad on paper. Whether the squad planning and the players we actually brought in are good enough, probably not. But on paper and the signings we have made, our second team is a lot stronger. Could also be a chance for some of the academy boys to feature as well. I don't think so, just because our squad is so big. So when you see my, lineup, I have just gone with the second string players. Maybe Reggie Walsh could start, but I just don't see it. Same with like Schwimwaker, I just don't see it. But they could be on the bench. They could make a cameo, depending if we're winning comfortably. So before we get onto the team I've picked, who I think will play, let's get some updates from Maresca, the man himself, right? So we came out. Maresca once again says João Pedro is not 100% physically fit and it's difficult for him. Maresca also says he's not a number 9 who's going to get 20, 25 goals a season like Haaland, Mbappe, Lewandowski. He's a different type of number 9. I mean, obviously, I think the main takeaway from this is if he's not 100% physically fit and he has got a niggly injury or something that's, keeping him from being the main guy, what does that say about our squad depth? The fact that Buonanotte, even when the player he's competing for, and when Palmer's out as well, it should be quite an easy spot to take that number 10, right? And if you can't take it from an injured João Pedro and we're playing Mark Gui up top, right? I think it just shows he doesn't rate Buonanotte. I don't particularly rate him either. Not for Chelsea standard anyway. He's not certainly Fermin Lopez or Xavi Simons. And, I know Xavi Simons doesn't have the best start at Spurs, but I truly do think he would have, integrated and performed a lot better under a Maresca team. I don't know. To be honest, we don't really know Xavi Simons' position. He's like a half winger, shadow striker. What is he? He's not a clear out and out number 10 or winger. So look, would it have been the most successful signing? No, but I think it still shows more ambition than getting someone like a Buonanotte on loan. And again, we can see that this season, our number 10 position, Palmer's out injured. João Pedro is injured, yet he's still playing, and Buonanotte still can't make it into the team. So I just think it shows he doesn't quite trust the squad, and that's why we're dropping points, right? But again, João Pedro should be good enough to perform like than he has been recently. But if he is injured, he is injured. It's a bit like when Enzo Fernandez, under Poch, was really lacking towards the end of the season, and it turned out he was playing through injury. Again, we just don't have the squad depth, which is laughable when you look at how much we've spent and the positions we strengthened in, and loads of wingers and the same type of wingers as well. Garnacho, Neto, that's the same winger. I just don't think we needed that profile. It didn't make any sense. So again, we can rant and rave about what we did this transfer window, and it wasn't good. It was a poor season, right? But Maresca's got to crack on now, and he's got to find a way to get the team moving because, as it stands, we're in ninth, and we just lost to Sunderland, so he's got to find a remedy. But again, I'm not going to overreact too much. We won 4 games in a row before then, but it was a terrible loss. It wasn't good at all, especially at home. And also, Maresca says he's going to rotate tomorrow to protect some players. I mean, obviously, and I've taken that into account in my starting 11 as well. It's pretty much a completely different 11 to the one that started, in the Premier League game. And again, we need to rest players because we do have some big games coming up. But I don't think we completely, just play all the academy boys, even though it is the Carabao Cup, right? And then also, Liam Delap is back finally. This is really promising, really important for our team. He's available tomorrow, says Maresca. I don't think that means he's going to start, right? But certainly he's going to be on the bench and maybe he can get a 10-15 minute cameo, just looking to integrate himself back into the team and build some match sharpness, some match fitness, right? So big news. That is really good for our season. We're going to need him back, especially when we play in these games that, quote unquote, we should beat and they play a low block. We're going to need some physicality up top and the sort of, back to goal presence that he can bring us. So moving on to the game tomorrow. The game everyone's excited for, Wolves in the Carabao Cup, absolute barn burner. Can't wait to watch this game, it's going to be so exciting. So this is the team I've gone with. Jorgensen in goals. We are going to play our second goalkeeper. I just want to see a decent performance from him. I don't want to see him running out of his box, trying to claim crosses and punching people in the head. He's not a boxer, you're a goalkeeper. That's what I expect to see tomorrow. So Jorgensen, please give me a decent performance. All I'm asking for is a 7 out of 10, okay? I know that's quite a lot for you, but that's all I'm asking for, okay? And when there's a penalty, when you dive the right way, I don't need you to jump over the ball. I need you to save the ball, okay? So, I would go Jorgensen in goals. Malo Gusto at right back. I think obviously we rest Reece James. There's no point playing him, and maybe we could have Genesis Antwi on the bench. You never know. I think it could be worth him maybe getting a cameo as well. He's been playing decent in the academy. I don't want to see Reece James play at all though. We need him for the Spurs game. Wesley Fofana and Tosin would be my centre back partnership. I'd rest a Champion. Again, you could maybe play Chalobah here. I'm not too fussed. But I think a Champion, we rest him. He starts against Spurs. And I think this is the centre-back partnership I want to see. I don't want to see Chalobah start, to be honest. I mean, he could be instead of Tosin, but I don't want to see Tosin and Chalobah. Absolutely not. I don't like that partnership. It doesn't work, and I don't want to see it. So I think Fofana needs to get more match fitness as well. I'd like him to play against Spurs, but we're going to have to see if he has a good game and he stays fit here, you can play against Spurs. But again, I wouldn't give him like 40 minutes. He needs to play full games. We haven't seen enough of him yet. So this is what I would go for, but it's not ideal. I don't trust either of them either. And if we didn't play Spurs, I'd like to see maybe this centre-back partnership and play Cucurella there. But obviously we need Cucurella to rest. We need him to be fully fit for the game on the weekend. So obviously Hato takes his place, and hopefully it'll be a decent performance by Hato. I think if he just inverts into the defence here, and we can give Gusto license to just bomb forward, create an overlap with Tyreek George, I think that's how we get the best out of him, right? Lavia and Santos is my midfield pivot. You could play maybe Reggie Walsh here, but I think if Reggie Walsh was going to play, he's going to be instead of Buonanotte, right? But I think this is the two midfielders. We need Enzo, Fernandez, and Caicedo to rest. Caicedo, a shock, but he had a poor game against Sunderland. He's been super consistent, Mr. Consistent, but you have to say he did play really poorly. So he needs to eat the bench. It looks like he needs a bit of rest because he is playing every game. So it's the perfect opportunity now. Lavia and Andre Santos to just, build maybe somewhat of a partnership. And, with the way Maresca likes to play, it'll probably be something like that, right? Maybe it'll be something like this, or, Gusto will be bombing forward and then we play something like this in possession. That's what it probably looked like on paper. But I think, it'll start like this and Andre Santos will have more license to get forward and be involved into the play, right? I would go Tyreek George on the right. Maybe you could start Neto. I probably wouldn't start Neto on the weekend. So, look, Neto could play in this game. I'd like to see Estevao and Gittins against Spurs, to be honest. I think that's our best wing pairing as it stands. So with that in mind, you could also start Garnacho. It's quite flexible. I think whoever's going to play on the weekend probably shouldn't play here. But, the only reason I've gone with Gittins is I think he does need to play more. It's not like he's played loads of games, so him playing against Wolves and then playing against Spurs on the weekend, it's not like he's going to be fatigued. So I think, maybe get him a bit of confidence. Maybe he can get a goal in this game. We can sub him off 50, 60 minutes in, and then we can keep him for the game on the weekend, right? So, maybe Garnacho starts. Maybe Tyreek George starts over on the left and we play Neto on the right. You know, there's a few ways you can line up, and we'll see what Maresca goes with, right? But I quite liked seeing Tyreek George in this position. I thought his crossing ability when we last saw him here, you know, was quite underrated and quite dangerous. So, you know, I would go with him on the right. Potentially he could be up top as well if we're going to maybe rest Mark Way, but I doubt it considering Liam Delap is now back into the team, right? And he's going to be fighting for that striker position. So I think he needs to play anyway. It's not like he's played loads of games, so he needs to get, you know, some more minutes. Bonate is a big chance for him now. He needs to do something. You know, the games he's played, he's been okay, but I need to see more than him if he wants to warrant a start in the Chelsea team, especially if João Pedro's not even fully fit and he still can't get a sniff into the team. You know, what does that say about his quality? Or it just means, you know, maybe Maresca doesn't quite rate him as much as, you know, other people do. So it's going to be a big game from him. He needs to turn up and he needs to show why he can potentially start in that 10 position if João Pedro is not fully fit, right? So it would be nice for him maybe to get a goal, but we'll see. I don't expect us to score loads against Wolves tomorrow, to be honest. And obviously, yeah, Tyreek George on the left, but it could be Garnacho. Look, I'm not totally convinced on either of them at the moment, and it could also be Neto, but, you know, to be honest, I don't want to see Neto playing. So, you know, that just leaves Mark Guehi up top. I expect Liam Delap to maybe come off the bench tomorrow, maybe only 10-15 minutes. It won't be a lot, right? But certainly something just to get himself back into the team. Will João Pedro play up top? No. So it could maybe be Schwimwaker, but I suspect he'll probably be on the bench. Same with Reggie Walsh, same with Kavuma McQueen. I think we're going to have a few academy boys on the bench. If you looked at the academy team and their lineup and bench, you know, a lot of the main players weren't there, which, you know, tells me they're involved in main team training and they're going to feature in the game tomorrow. So I don't think any of the academy boys, you know, the youngsters that are going to start, but I think they're going to be on the bench. And if we're winning 2-3-0, then sure, they can come off the bench. And, you know, maybe Reggie Walsh will come off sooner. I think Maresca sees him as the most first team ready from what we've seen so far, right? He's the one who's been getting the most minutes and most involved. So that's the team I would go with if I was Maresca. I'll be interested to see what actually happens tomorrow. But, you know, with the game, we should win. But if we go out there and we lose, I'm not going to be crying because it's the Carabao Cup and I don't really care about this competition. It's just a chance for some of the second team players to prove why they should maybe start for the weekend or just, you know, for the foreseeable future. And again, it's a chance for some of the academy boys to maybe make their debut, come off the bench, maybe get their first senior goals, something like that, right? But we're big favourites. I'm going to go with a 2-0 win, maybe 2-1, you know, with the Jorgensen tax. Don't know if we'll keep a clean sheet. I mean, we should, right? Wolves are really poor. And again, don't think it's going to be their strongest team. So, look, we should win. I predicted us to win against Sunderland, but I think most people did as well, and especially by the odds. We were big favourites and we didn't win. But I think this is different. You know, Sunderland are, you know, they're a decent team, right? You look at the table, they're not doing so bad for themselves. But Wolves, you can't say the same, right? They've only got 2 draws this whole season. They're on 2 points. It's the Carabao Cup. So I think, you know, this should be a comfortable win. But again, if they beat us or they knock us out, it is what it is. We move on to the weekend, right? And certainly, you know, with the fixture coming up, Wolves away is a huge game, you know. So more of the attention should be drawn onto this game. But, you know, let's beat what's put in front of us. Let's beat Wolves. Maybe we can win the trophy. It'd be nice. We haven't won the Carabao Cup for a while now. You know, it's been quite a few years since we won this competition, but it is what it is. It's nothing serious, right? So that's the preview for today, boys. I'll put a live stream on tomorrow, so if anyone wants to, you know, have a watch along and see the game there, I will be live streaming that. Hopefully my internet doesn't decide to shit itself like it did last time and just cut out about an hour into the game. So, you know, I'll try the live stream. And obviously, I'll give my match thoughts straight after the game as well. You know, we are back home, so I can put the video straight away. And that's it. We move on to Saturday. Saturday is the big game. I think that's the one everyone's most, you know, we need to get the 3 points. We have to beat them, and they're not in the best form as well. So now is kind of a good opportunity to play Spurs as well. So see you boys tomorrow, and peace.